Jocelyn. I think we're going to get started.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to talk through this.
I don't have a commanding presence like you do. Everyone is going to get started. Thanks for coming tonight, everyone. I'm Jocelyn Owens from the Shelter Island Library. Dr. Stephen Adkison, pastor of the Shelter Island Presbyterian Church, is here tonight to talk about everyday pilgrimages. And I spoke with Pastor Steve to learn a little bit about his life, and he's a fascinating person. So I know this is going to be special. Maybe I'm setting you up for it, but a bit about his background. Pastor Steve is originally from Russellville, Arkansas. He's been in the ministry for almost 30 years. Before Shelter Island, he was at a church with a very large congregation in Fort Myers Beach, Florida. And he was looking for something smaller with 4 seasons. So he got what he was looking for. Yeah. He has many interests: music, motorcycles, martial arts, and he runs marathons. He loves literature and he loves traveling. He has a wife and 3 children, a dog and a cat. And in addition to all of that, he's a trained therapist. So clearly, Pastor Steve is living a very full life, and Shelter Island is lucky to have him. And please welcome Dr. Steve Adkison.
Thank you. Well, hello, everybody. And I want to take this opportunity to welcome you this evening. Thank you for coming out. I feel very honored. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you, Jocelyn, for the introduction. I also want to say thank you to the library for inviting me to speak tonight, for giving me this opportunity. They first contacted me and said, would you like to speak at our Friday night talks? And I said, well, what do you want me to speak about? And they're like, I don't know. And I said, well, how about pilgrimage? And they're like, well, okay, that sounds good. So let's just go with that. So I worked on this project and came up with this title and this talk entitled Everyday Pilgrimage. Put this up here. But, you heard some of the things that Jocelyn said, about my life, but also I've always been kind of a wanderer. I've always been nomadic. I've always had a restless spirit and kind of that sense of wanderlust about me, and wanting to go forth and just discover new places, unfamiliar places, new ideas, and I've been all over the world. But my life journey, my faith journey, has brought me and my family here to Shelter Island, and to all of you tonight. So again, I say thank you. Everyday pilgrimage is our topic tonight. And I want to ask you, are you an everyday pilgrim? Mm-hmm. Now you're thinking, well, what is it anyway? Well, you're on the path of an everyday pilgrim if any of these things apply to you. You're the seeker. You're the curious one in the room who's always asking questions and looking for ways to dig deeper. You want your daily life to reflect what matters most to you. You're drawn to mystery and wonder, and you find more value in the search than in accepting easy answers. Maybe you believe that life does have meaning, even on the most ordinary of days. And then finally, you might be an everyday pilgrim if you know that it's the journeys that you've taken so far that have made you who you are today. Now, if you said yes to any of these things, you are in the right place tonight. And you just might be an everyday pilgrim. Well, first of all, what is a pilgrim? When you think of that word pilgrim, what automatically comes to mind? You think Thanksgiving. That's right. You think about Thanksgiving, you think about the pilgrims at Plymouth Rock, you know, and they come and they've got these hats with buckles on them, and they've got shoes with buckles on them, and they've got short, funny pants, and you know, this is what comes to mind. But you know, the pilgrims were actually just Puritans who were on their own journey. They were on their own life-changing journey to the Americas, actually. Now, defining pilgrimage in terms of the etymology of the word, it's really kind of an elusive and challenging task to some degree. The word pilgrimage is derived from the Latin phrase per agrum. Per agrum just means through the field. Through the field. And the noun peregrinis means foreigner, wanderer, traveler, newcomer, or stranger. And that's the etymology. Now, if you want to look at a more formal definition of the word pilgrimage, which I ripped off of Wikipedia, by the way, but it was a pretty good definition. And this is what it said. A pilgrimage is, and I quote, a journey, often into an unknown or foreign place, where a person goes in search of new or expanded meaning about their self, about others, about nature. Maybe it's a higher good, a greater good, and of course it might even be a higher power through that experience. It can lead to a personal transformation, after which then the pilgrim returns back to daily life. So that's the formal definition of a pilgrimage. Now, pilgrimages, though, they frequently involve a journey or a search of maybe a moral or spiritual significance, often a journey to a sacred land. Now, sacred lands, that's interesting. Such sacred lands, and we'll talk about some of those here in just a moment, some of those sacred lands have been called thin places. Have any of you ever heard of that phrase, thin places? Some of you may have. Well, this is what a thin place is. You're on your journey, and you come to this thin place. A thin place is where the veil between this world and the eternal world is at its thinnest. Let me put it this way. A thin place is where one can walk in two worlds, where the two worlds come together as one. Think of it as heaven and earth, in a sense, overlapping. Think about the natural and the supernatural coming together. That is a thin place. And I would like to suggest that as an everyday pilgrim, on an everyday pilgrimage, that anywhere can be a thin place. Here and now in Shelter Island, in this room right now, this is a thin place. Now, some of the more formal thin places that I have pilgrimaged to over the years, I went on my first pilgrimage to Israel in 1998. And went on yet another pilgrimage to Israel in 2019. And while this is a long story, and I would love to share this with you sometime, while I was in Israel in 2019, my wife Amy and I got married while we were there. So that was something really special. I also went on a pilgrimage to Italy, of course, Rome, and Assisi. Assisi was particularly a thin place for me. Turkey, I had a chance to go to Turkey, and particularly Ephesus was one of those thin places for me. And then I had a chance to pilgrimage to Greece in 2018. Now, Christianity, I am a Christian minister, but Christianity is not the only religion that goes on a pilgrimage to sacred places, right? In Islam, every follower of Islam who can manage the journey is required to make a pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca in Saudi Arabia And that is where Muhammad was born. And this pilgrimage, does anybody know the name of that pilgrimage?
Hajj.
The Hajj. Yes, it's called the Hajj. Very good. And also in Judaism. Very Hajj. And in Judaism, I know that there are Jews all around the world that will take a pilgrimage to Israel, to Jerusalem. The Dome of the Rock is a very thin place. Of course, there's the Western Wall, or the Wailing Wall, which is the remaining part of the Jewish temple. Even the Buddhists have pilgrimages as well. For example, a Buddhist might want to take a pilgrimage to Lumbini, Nepal, which is the Buddha's birthplace. Now, the thing about pilgrimage also is it's not only sacred, but it can also be secular. While rooted in religious origins, the practice of pilgrimage has come to include secular pastimes, activities, locations as well. Now, a journey, I will say this, a journey to a secular place sometimes might feel a little sacred. It might actually feel like a thin place. For example, some will take a pilgrimage, let's say, to the final resting places of famous people. For example, I've heard of people who have traveled to Paris, France, in pilgrimage to visit the grave of Jim Morrison, who has been buried in Paris. People will go, they'll pilgrimage there. Ernest Hemingway, you can make a pilgrimage to his final resting place. Does anybody know? Ketchum, Idaho. So if you want to make a trip to Ketchum, Idaho, you've got a reason to do that. Now, I'm a musician, as many of you know, and so music is very important to me. I talk about all those other pilgrimages that I went on, but I also have to add this pilgrimage, and it's to me, it's the Holy Land of rock and roll. And it's a place by the name of Graceland. Anybody ever heard of Graceland? Of course, for this Elvis fan, going to Graceland the first time really felt like a religious experience for me. It felt, and another something kind of related to that was I had a chance in '96 to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Again, very, very powerful experience. Another, you also hear about people who were going to take a pilgrimage to Disney World, right? Disney World. Okay, we're going to take a pilgrimage to Disney World. And I actually did that one time when I lived in Florida. And one trip was enough for me. I don't know if that place was a thin place, because it was very hot. It was very crowded and very expensive. But nevertheless, there are people who will journey there, and they see it in a way almost like a secular pilgrimage. So pilgrimages can be spiritual. Well, what about those people that are not religious? They're spiritual, but they're not religious. In the past 30 years, the Camino de Santiago is in northwest Spain. I don't know, some of you maybe have gone on that. Ellen, I think maybe you're going to go. You have gone.
Yeah, Laura and I have gone.
Yeah, Laura, you went. The Camino is the way of St. James, the Apostle James. And it's interesting, too, that this particular pilgrimage has been recreated as an eclectic pilgrimage. And it's open to both the sacred and the secular, to those that are religious and those who might be atheists and agnostic travelers. In fact, there was an interview done with a number of atheistic and agnostic travelers. They said, well, why do you want to go on such a pilgrimage like this? Because you're not really connecting with the divine being, right? Well, then they'll say, well, no, not so much interested in connecting with the divine being as we are with having a sense of transcendence, having characterized by a desire to connect to nature and to deepen oneself. In a way, it's like a journey of self-discovery. So Sacred or secular, pilgrimage, it goes across all ideas. You know, pilgrimage also can be psychological. It can be psychological. I think of the pilgrimage of the mind or the pilgrimage of the soul. And who comes to mind for me is somebody who, I've read a lot of his work, and it's psychiatrist Carl Jung. Carl Jung, he talked about a journey, the everyday journey. But for him, the everyday journey was toward individuation. It was toward wholeness. And what Carl Jung did in his therapy is what is called analysis. And what would happen in that analysis is it would be almost like taking a pilgrimage, but you're not going out there anywhere. You're going inside. The pilgrimage is within. It's an internal pilgrimage. It's an internal journey into the subconscious mind. And the way that you get there, you know, Jung talked about through dreams, journaling, that kind of thing. And so it's important to discover what's happening in here, and then whatever's happening in here, then bring it forth into consciousness. And that would be the external. So in a way, pilgrimages also can be psychological in nature. Now, for me, as a pastor and a theologian and somebody who has been clinically trained in therapy, and I've been on many pilgrimages, and I was influenced greatly by Jung, as I had said. I utilize this idea, this concept of pilgrimage in my doctoral dissertation. And which I got this at Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California. And by the way, I was talking with where's Father Peter? I was talking to Father Peter this morning. He called me up and he goes, "Hey, Steve, this is your old friend, Father Peter. Tonight's the night. Are you going to read your dissertation?" Not if I want him to stay. But anyway, the topic that I chose was on pilgrimage. And in fact, this was the church that I was serving at the time, and it's entitled Faith Journey, Utilizing the Pilgrimage Metaphor for Spiritual Renewal at First Presbyterian Church, Magnolia, Arkansas. So this is the dissertation. But what I did in this dissertation, what influenced it was that, you know what, I've been on all these pilgrimages, but I was trying to come up with a model to help bring about spiritual renewal in the church. And so basically how I set that up is very similar to what Jung did in terms of his analysis, where he would go inward and then bring that out. I did the same thing, and I broke it down into the inward journey of discipleship or growing in love, and then there is the outward journey, going forth and sharing divine love with others. That was my dissertation. And I gave a program. Hey, John, come on in, have a seat. So I wrote my whole dissertation. So again, it's all going back to pilgrimage for me. But this kind of pilgrimage was psychological, spiritual, going in and then going forth. So kind of in summary, so far, pilgrimages come in all shapes and sizes and places. And they're secular, they're sacred, they're psychological, they're individual, and they're communal. Now, maybe you have been on a pilgrimage of some sort. Maybe it was sacred, maybe it was secular, maybe it was both. It doesn't really matter. And so if anybody'd like to share maybe where you have been on pilgrimage. Anybody?
Yeah, because I think this is great that you're the person that's up there and allowing us to have your insights, because it is so freeing not to have someone who, I mean, you obviously have your discipline and your, you know, the protocols of your particular brand of spirituality. Yeah, but the thing is, you're not labeling, it's not like this is the path, and you mentioned earlier about, it's not about the answers, it's really about the questions.
Yeah, yeah.
And the fact is, and I'll just fault you on one thing, and you kind of know it already, the artificial divide between secular and spiritual. And I know for me, I've come to realize, and it's kind of upsetting because I'm getting old, and maybe it's some kind of second childhood afterburn or some weird thing, but I get very passionate about this because what I've discovered for me in many aspects of my own life is that I can't help but be spiritual. I am not religious. I am sorry that although there's wonderful things, you know, whatever path you choose, if it's truly working for you to get you closer to all that you are meant to be and you know, for giving to the world and so forth, great. But I'm so sad that we have separated and that there is a divide, because there is none. And we're hybrids. And we are part spirit. We can't help but be. So if somebody says, "Oh, I'm not spiritual," you know, it's not my thing. You can't help it. You may, as far as I'm concerned. And so I just, you know, my spiritual journey is so young and all that. Everything you said, I'm going, yeah. And I am not. I mean, I do have a few Methodist ministers in my family, but that's okay. Don't hold it against me. But this is wonderful. This is because we don't have the vocabulary in our world to speak about what we spend on the unseen world that we all have. We don't know how to discuss our personal experiences. And you have opened this and said, you know, anything goes in terms of the kinds of spiritual experiences. So thank you.
Well, thank you for those words.
So much.
Anybody else been on a pilgrimage somewhere? Now, Ellen, I'm waiting.
I know you're waiting for me. So I have been blessed to go to Santiago in 2006, a year after my husband died, and my daughter asked me. She was walking the whole thing, which was a month, over 570 miles, I think.
Wow. And
so she said, "Mom, would you like to join me for 10 days? So I said, I never heard of that, but I Googled it, and I said, yeah, I think I would, you know. So she said, we are gonna be like a pilgrim, and we had to wear everything, you know, what we were gonna use or sleep on our back, and sleep in these hostels and whatnot. And that was an experience, but it was also very enlightening for me. It was a very important time where a transformation was going to be taking, a transition or whatever. And I am, I don't want to say I'm religious, but I'm spiritual. I have faith. And wow, it just was amazing, the insights and the closer that I felt to my higher, to God, and also to myself. So, but I want to really share, a couple of years ago, I went to Sedona with some friends, and there's a lot of mystical stuff about Sedona, and I'm not, you know, I mean, I'm open, but I just like scoff at it, kind of. So I went with these two friends, and myself, and we were going to be there for the day, and we walked to the most spiritual place, or mystical place, this Angel Rock. And we were together, but we were kind of separate. And all of a sudden, I don't know what came over me. I can't even describe it, but this inner light, I felt like I was a light. And I'm not, trust me, I don't usually go there. And I wasn't afraid. Usually I was like, and I stood, you know, you had to cross this little river, I just stood there, I mean, and I just stood, I really felt I was in the presence of God, or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was an amazing experience for me, it really
Thank
was.
you. Thank you for sharing.
So,
So,
Yes,
yeah,
don't
I mean, pilgrimage, they do transform, but, the thing about pilgrimage is it's not just about going to these holy places.
right,
Pilgrimage can also be applied in the here and now, everyday life, right here on Shelter Island, right where you find yourself, no matter where that is. Remember, every place can be a thin place. And the truth is, we are all, maybe you haven't been to Israel, maybe you haven't been to wherever, but we're all on journeys together. We're on a journey of faith, we're on journeys in relationships, we're on journeys of discovering who we are, what we love, and this is the journey that we're all traveling called life. And I think of the great spiritual teacher, Ram Dass. I think he captured these words beautifully. Or he captured what everyday pilgrimage is beautifully saying. And listen closely to this, because this is really kind of getting at the heart of what it's about. He says, together we are all on a journey called life. We are a little broken and a little shattered inside. Any of you ever feel that way? Each one of us is aspiring to make it to the end, to the finish line. None is deprived of pain here, and we have all suffered in our own ways. Our journey is all about healing ourselves and healing each other in our own special ways. So let's just help each other put all those pieces back together and make it to the end more beautifully. Let us help each other survive. Aren't those beautiful words?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they really struck me. And you know, Ram Dass, he also said that we are just walking each other home. You know, so it's not just an individual thing. It's we need each other. We live in community. No man, no woman is an island. So we're all in this together. And let me tell you, it's not easy for anybody. And so let's help one another. Now, with that in mind, Barry, what are you doing?
You don't want to know. You don't want to.
That's okay. You keep on going.
I'm on my journey.
And you're on your cleaning and sanitation. And so, when I was thinking about what I wanted to share with you, I thought, well, I can't have a talk on everyday pilgrimage and not talk about the hero's journey. Anybody ever heard of the hero's journey? Yeah, you've heard of the hero's journey. Well, let me ask you just quickly, and you just say it quickly. Who's your favorite superhero? Come on.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man? Anybody else?
Actually, Elastigirl.
Oh, Elastigirl. Okay. Anybody else? All right. Who else? Well, anyway, my favorite superhero was always Batman. I remember when I was a kid, I would, my brothers and I was the oldest of three boys, we'd run around the house with towels tied around our neck, pretending that we were Batman. But in the hero's journey, you are the hero of your own story. You're the hero of your own story. And so what is the hero's journey? The hero's journey is by mythologist and philosopher Joseph Campbell, who greatly influenced me. And the hero's journey is really about the everyday pilgrimage. It's about the journey of life and the pilgrimage that we're all on. And it manifests itself in the arts, as we'll see here in just a moment. But kind of in summary, what is the hero's journey? The hero's journey is basically a common narrative, or a story template, which involves a hero or heroine who goes on an adventure, learns a lesson, wins a victory with that newfound knowledge, and then returns home transformed. In essence, that's really the hero's journey. Now, the hero's journey has 12 stages, but because we don't have a whole lot of time tonight, you can actually boil those down into three. Or 3 acts. That's how I've got it set up. And so what's the first act of the hero's journey? It's separation. Separation. A hero is called to adventure and to leave his or her known world or the ordinary world, and they're usually guided by some kind of mentor. So there's a call to leave the ordinary. Okay? Act 2 is called the initiation. And once the hero agrees to go on this journey, will then cross the threshold of adventure, and that's when they enter into initiation. Now, it's during this part right here where the hero has all kinds of adventures, right? The hero faces many tests and trials and confronts inner demons, and that many times are represented by ghosts or monsters or dragons, and then goes on through the stages of enlightenment. And while the hero is down in the initiation part, it's there where the hero retrieves what is called the boon, B-O-O-N. And what is that? The boon is some sort of treasure. Okay, it could be gold, it could be something else, but it can also be greater knowledge or wisdom. And then once the hero has attained that, then must return back to the normal world from which he or she came. And then finally, Act 3. Act 3, and it's during the final section of the narrative that the hero must release the power of the boon. You've gotten the boon, the treasure, the wisdom, whatever, and now you go back and you release that into society in order to restore it. So in a nutshell, that's the hero's journey. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed that many stories seem to have the same pattern? I mean, think about it. Very similar to the hero's journey. There's always a protagonist, this main character, leaves home, makes new friends as well as enemies. Got to have the antagonist in there. Encounters roadblocks, might fight a bad guy or two, might fall in love, might fall out of love, and then returns home a changed person, a transformed person to help others on their life journey. It's the hero's journey, right? Now, it's in all forms of artistic expression. Here's some examples. Like, for example, a book that is perfectly describes the hero's journey, and that's the Odyssey. Maybe you read the Odyssey. It's the epic story of the hero, Odysseus, and he follows closely the complete cycle of the hero's journey. If you read that, you will see all the facets there. Or maybe it's in movies. In movies, you see the hero's journey. For example, one of my favorite movies of all time, Star Wars. Right? Who's the hero in Star Wars? Yes, Luke Skywalker. And then what does Luke do? He goes on a journey. Another movie that's all about the hero's journey, The Wizard of Oz. And who's the hero in that? Dorothy. Another one that came to mind for me, Lion King. The Lion King is a hero's journey. And of course the main character there is Simba, the little lion. What about some songs? Hero's journey is actually in songs, and some songs too. For example, if you listen closely to Steppenwolf's Magic Carpet Ride, Born to be Wild, it's the hero's journey, everyday pilgrimage. Maybe Space Oddity by David Bowie, Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven, Wagner's The Ride of the Valkyries, hero's journey. See, it's the story arc of our lives. It's the story arc of every man, woman, and child. And now, knowing more about the hero's journey, you'll be able to see it in movies. And you'll be like, oh, or in books. And, oh, this is what Pastor Steve was talking about. In fact, my kids always tease me because we'll be watching a movie or something, and then they'll say, "Oh no, Dad's going to start talking about the hero's journey again." Here we go with the hero's journey again. Now, anyway, that's the hero's journey. Now, I want to how to be an everyday pilgrim, and there are 5 things that I came up with quickly. Just 5 pointers for the road that have helped me as I journeyed forward. There may be others for you that you might think of, but for me, one the things that's really helped me in my life journey, my everyday pilgrimage, is to be mindful. Be mindful. And I think of Eckhart Tolle and the power of now. And that book was very powerful for me. And I had a chance to hear Tolle speak in Miami, Florida. And it really changed my life. It's all about mindfulness. You know, what does that even mean anyway? Well, life can pass us by. And we may not even notice it. I've said to some friends of mine, I'm still trying to figure out what happened in my 30s and my 40s. I'm like, where did it go? I wasn't fully aware, I don't think. I wasn't awake. I believe, I look back on that, I was living inauthentically, and I didn't even realize it. So a journey and a pilgrimage can bring a type of awakening. It can bring an enlightenment in the present moment. And that's really what mindfulness is all about. It's about what's happening in the here and now. My friends, we should learn from the past. We should hope for the future, but we should live in the now, right now. After all, as Tolle says, the now is all that we have. This is it. And we focus, I think, way too much on the past. We get too caught up in the future, and then we totally forget about what's happening in the now. So my friends, if you want to be an everyday pilgrim, you want to be mindful in the now, open your eyes. Not only the ones on your face, but open the eyes in your heart and see the awe and the wonder that is all around you. You know, I think of Einstein, who supposedly said that there are two ways to live your life. I think you remember me saying this. One is as though nothing is a miracle. You can live your life that way. The other is as though everything is a miracle. The everyday pilgrim has eyes for those miracles. Now, the miracles that I'm talking about, I'm not talking about necessarily walking on water. I'm not talking about turning water into wine. But what I'm talking about is the miracle of transformation, the miracle of healing, and the miracle of wholeness. So be mindful. The second thing is be intentional. Be intentional. Related to being mindful is to be intentional. Journey with a purpose and with a sense of expectation. Are you being intentional in your life right now? The third thing, be passionate. Be passionate. Live mindfully and intentionally, and do it with passion. Do it with passion. My friends, this is the only chance that we get. One go around here. While we're here on this earth, let us make it count. Follow your bliss. Joseph Campbell said that. Follow your bliss. And so I want to ask you, just think to yourself in your mind, what is it that excites you? What is your passion? What feeds and nourishes your soul? I mean, I know that everyday life can be mundane and ordinary, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Joseph Campbell also said, I don't believe that people are looking for the meaning of life as much as they are looking for the experience of being alive. Yeah, your heart is beating, but are you truly alive? What is it that makes you come alive? What is it that brings you joy? What is your bliss? And are you following it? There's still going to be pain. There's still going to be suffering. There's still going to be great challenges along the path, but leave room for joy. There can be immense joy in the journey. So be passionate. The fourth thing is be grateful. Great gratitude is the key. Gratitude. If you want to be an everyday pilgrim, if you want things to come alive, give thanks for your life, for the big things, for the little, for the good, and even for the not so good, and everything in between. And take the time to tell others, those that are close to you, how much you appreciate them. I talked about in my congregation about, it seems like why is it only one day a year that we give thanks. Thanksgiving, oh, this is the day I give thanks. What about giving thanks every day, making a regular habit? In fact, I like to use this phrase, turn Thanksgiving into thanks living. So an everyday pilgrim is going to give gratitude, give every day. So it's thanks living. And by the way, gratitude, clinically proven to reduce depression and anxiety. So if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling depressed, start giving thanks, start counting your blessings, and it's amazing how your mood will begin to improve. And the final thing is be kind. Be kind. Again, this is just what came to mind for me. The rock band REM, maybe some of you have heard of them. They sang a song entitled Everybody Hurts. And yes, we all feel pain. Everybody is fighting some kind of battle. So just be kind. Be kind to others. Be kind to yourself. Because kindness transforms you and those around you. The Dalai Lama said, kindness is my religion. That's very powerful. And then Mr. Rogers, everybody, I'm wearing my Mr. Rogers here. By the way, Mr. Rogers was an ordained Presbyterian minister. You know that? And he was under care of the Pittsburgh Presbyterian, and they had him classified as televangelist. So Mr. Rogers was actually a televangelist. And he said, he did it the right way, I think. But Mr. Rogers said there are 3 ways to ultimate success. The first way is to be kind. The second way is to be kind. And can anybody guess the third way? Be kind. That's it. That's it. Kindness. So with that said, as we close, and since we are in a library, and you have been pretty good boys and girls tonight, I thought it might be nice to close with story time. Would you like to hear a story?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to read my dissertation. No. This is a book. Maybe you've heard of this. This is the hero show. Right here. All the places you go. And I just wanted to read this to you as we, and then we're going to have some time for discussion. But here we go. All right. Oh, the places you go by that great philosopher, Dr. Seuss. Congratulations. Today is your day. You're off to great places. You're off and away. You have brains in your head. You have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own. And you know what you know. And you are the guy who will decide where to go. You'll look up and down streets, look them over with care. About some you will say, I don't choose to go there. With your head full of brains and your shoes full of feet, you're too smart to go down any not so good street. And you may not find any you'll want to go down. In that case, of course, you'll head straight out of town. It's opener there in the wide open air. Out there, things can happen, and frequently do, to people as brainy and footsy as you. And when things start to happen, don't worry, don't stew, just go right along. You'll start happening too. Oh, the places you'll go. You'll be on your way up. You'll be seeing great sights. You'll join the high flyers who soar to high heights. You won't lag behind because you'll have the speed. You'll pass the whole gang and you'll soon take the lead. Wherever you fly, you'll be best of the best. Wherever you go, you will top all the rest. Except when you don't. Because sometimes you won't. I'm sorry to say so, but sadly it's true that bang-ups and hang-ups can happen to you. You can get all hung up in a prickly perch and your gang will fly on. You'll be left in a lurch. You'll come down from the lurch with an unpleasant bump, and the chances are then that you'll be in a slump. And when you're in a slump, you're not in for much fun. Unslumping yourself is not easily done. You will come to a place where the streets are not marked. Some windows are lighted, but mostly they're dark. A place you could sprain both your elbow and chin. Do you dare stay out? Do you dare go in? How much can you lose? How much can you win? And if you go in, should you turn left or right and 3/4, or maybe not quite? Or go around back and sneak in from behind? Simple it's not, I'm afraid you will find. For a mind maker-upper to make up his mind. You can get so confused that you'll start in to race down long wiggled roads at a breaknecking pace and grind on for miles across weirdish wild space, headed, I fear, toward a most useless place, the waiting place. People just waiting for a train to go, or a bus to come, or a plane to go, or the mail to come, or the rain to go, or the phone to ring, or the snow to snow, or waiting around for a yes or no, or waiting for their hair to grow. Everyone is just waiting. Waiting for the fish to bite, or waiting for wind to fly a kite, or waiting around for Friday night, or waiting perhaps for their Uncle Jake, or a pot to boil, or a better break, or a string of pearls, or a pair of pants, or a wig with curls, or another chance. Everyone is just waiting. No, that's not for you. Somehow you'll escape all that waiting and staying. You'll find the bright places where boom bands are playing. With banner flip-flapping, once more you'll ride high, ready for anything under the sky, ready because you're that kind of guy. Oh, the places you'll go, there is fun to be done. There are points to be scored, there are games to be won. And the magical things you can do with that ball will make you the winningest winner of all, fame. You'll be famous as famous can be, with the whole wide world watching you win on TV. Except when they don't, because sometimes they won't. I'm afraid that sometimes you'll play lonely games too, games you can't win because you'll play against you. All alone. Whether you like it or not, alone will be something you'll be quite a lot. And when you're alone, there's a very good chance you'll meet things that scare you right out of your pants. Boy, is that true. There are some down the road between hither and yon that can scare you so much that you won't want to go on. But on you will go, though the weather be foul. On you will go, though your enemies prowl. On you will go, though the hacking cracks howl. Onward up many a frightening creek, though your arms may get sore and your sneakers may leak. On and on you will hike, and I know you'll hike far and face up to your problems, whatever they are. You'll get mixed up, of course, as you already know. You'll get mixed up with many strange birds as you go. So be sure when you step with care and great tact. And remember that life's a great balancing act. Just never forget to be dexterous and deft, and never mix up your right foot with your left. And will you succeed? Yes, you will indeed. 98 3/4% guaranteed. Kid, you'll move mountains. So, be your name Bucksbaum or Bixby or Bray or Mordecai Ali Van Allen O'Shea, you're off to great places. Today is your day. Your mountain is waiting, so get on your way. And before we have questions, I just want to leave you with a blessing. It's a Celtic blessing that I use most every Sunday with my congregation, and I'd like to share this with you. And then we can use the rest of the time just for whatever. So, it's Celtic blessing. So, may the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. May the rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the hollow of his hand, now and forevermore. Amen. Amen. Thank you, and peace be with you. So, thank you, everybody. Do you have any questions or thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, I like to ask, where do I view that hero's,
What's that?
hero's journey?
What about it?
Is it a book?
Yeah, look at Joseph Campbell.
Okay,
Look
got
at
it.
Joseph Campbell's stuff.
Great.
Hero with 1,000 Faces.
You know, there is, maybe apocryphal, but I think it might be true, that many decades ago, four or five, there was somebody in the movie business who had been exposed to Joseph Campbell, and the classic, I mean, the Odyssey, all this kind of stuff, but it was Campbell's hero's journey, and he made a memo, which he sent out to movie theaters or producers, to say, this is it. This is the goal, this is what we follow plot-wise, because it is, well, of course it reflects living, but it's funny that you should have brought that up, because it affects us in everything we see and hear, and absolutely, and it's a good thing. It's too bad that it's sometimes used. Feels like you, right? Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
Anybody else have any other ideas or thoughts? Like to share? Well, then if not, again, thank you for coming, and blessings to each and every one of you. And I think that we are still recording.
Yep.
Hi. So if you wanted to watch this online, or somebody would like to, then Kimberly probably have that information. So, all right, everybody, thanks again.
Thank you.